Hey Paisanos, it's your old pal Colonel Crank here, and it finally happened. Nintendo decided to reveal the Switch-2 on a random Thursday morning for whatever reason, because God forbid you try to predict anything this company does. And cards on the table, I am not quite as excited as I thought I would be. Don't get me wrong, it's still cool to finally get official confirmation of this system, but for the most part, this is everything we've seen out of the various leaks that have been happening since last December. It's a Switch, it's more powerful, it's called the Switch-2, and hallelujah, the Joy-Cons are bigger so you won't cramp your fucking hands while playing this thing. Although, rest in peace to the satisfying click sound that the Switch 1 Joy-Con had when sliding in, replaced with a, at least at the moment, noticeably less satisfying snap sound as you put the Joy-Cons in on the side. But yeah, this is just kind of everything I think people expected out of a Switch successor, and in that way it's almost more surprising on its own that Nintendo didn't go in some bizarre alternate direction a la the Wii or the Wii U. But there are still a few interesting ideas on display here, mainly the magnetic Joy-Cons that snap onto the side of the console rather than sliding into the rails, which will have less chance to wear down over time and get loose. Though I do wonder how they're going to stop kids from snapping their fingers in between the Joy-Con and the console. I feel like that might happen very easily. If you ever had any of those magnetic rocks as a kid, you know what I'm talking about. Or at least I hope you do and I wasn't just an idiot as a child. I doubt this will be too much of a problem because Nintendo loves to safety-proof their products, but I'm still just a little curious about how that's going to go down. Maybe some kind of sensor on the Joy-Con? Oh, and speaking of the Joy-Con, the way they slide across the smooth surface in the reveal trailer makes me think those leaks about the controllers doubling as a mouse are probably true. How much that's actually going to get used, I'm not entirely sure. On one hand, it could be really useful for first-person shooters like Doom or Metroid Prime when you need an increased degree of accuracy. On the other hand, it could very easily end up like the IR sensors on the current Joy-Cons, in which those got used for like 2 to 3 games before getting forgotten fairly quickly. We'll just have to wait and see what Nintendo and third-party developers end up managing to do with that technology. But overall, this was a pretty lean reveal. It just gave the basic idea of the console, and the base idea of the console is a Switch, but a little bit better. And hey, it's got a nice, clear, understandable name. I think if anything needed to come out of this, it was that. There was a very good chance that Nintendo fucked with the name that you could have had a Wii U situation where people got too confused and thought this was a Pro model or an upgrade or something that wasn't just a damn sequel console. So I'm glad Nintendo's not fucking around and is just calling this what it is and making sure that marketing is nice and clear. But that's not all we got in the reveal trailer. At the very end, there were a few clips what appeared to be a brand new Mario Kart. And we actually notice this is a brand new Mario Kart and not another port of Mario Kart 8, because if you look closely at the characters, you'll see they've been notably redesigned, especially Donkey Kong, who has a much flatter face and eyes that are far more sunken in than normal, seemingly to better resemble his movie design, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I also don't entirely hate. It'll probably grow on me over time. As for what we see of this new Mario Kart, it's kind of hard to tell so far since it is just a teaser. So far, the thing that stood out most in the footage, at least to me, was the sheer size of the racetrack. They're bigger than pretty much any track we've ever had in a previous Mario Kart, which makes me believe that either A, we're going to have way more racers on the screen at once and it's going to be much more frenetic than normal, which would be perfect for a series like Mario Kart that's all about mixing skill and chance, constantly tossing items all over the screen and just generally causing chaos. Or B, you're going to have secret paths and alternate routes that you can take throughout the course, and that'll change how you'll be able to get to the finish line and when, which could reward dedicated players who know the tracks in and out like the back of their hand, and give longtime Mario Kart players a distinct advantage that can somewhat counteract the randomness of it all. Either way, I'm really curious to see what direction they go with Mario Kart in the future, especially considering the fact that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has been the Mario Kart for a decade now. Fans of the series are clamoring for something new and interesting to be done with it again, so any major twist on the formula is probably going to be a welcome change. But unfortunately, we're going to have to wait till April to get any more information. That's when Nintendo has scheduled their first big direct for the Switch 2, which, on a side note, really kind of feels like that's waiting a little bit too long. I understand you have a bit of a captive audience here and they're willing to wait on any word you say, but I still feel like waiting 2-3 months in between the reveal and more information is kind of letting your hype momentum die down a little bit. I understand there's still more Switch 1 games on the release docket, like Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, God, that's a mouthful, and the recently released Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, but I still think waiting till April is maybe a bit extreme, especially when people are so hungry for information about this console. They want to know as much as they can as soon as they can. Maybe putting this direct on in February or March would have worked better, but we'll see what happens in the coming months. And honestly, I'm just excited that this thing is finally out in the open and that developers, both first and third party, can finally start announcing their games for the fucking thing. So long, it's just been this weird open secret that everybody knows about, but nobody really wants to discuss, and now we can just kind of move past that and look at this as an actual console and see what it'll have to offer. Overall, I'm pretty excited. Even if I'm not quite as hyped as I would have been without the leak, I do admit that it's fun to know about this thing officially. And I can't wait for channels like Digital Foundry to take the thing apart and see what it actually makes it tick and how powerful it'll be in comparison to the PS5 and the Series X. Obviously, it won't be that strong, but it'll still hopefully be enough that most third parties will bring their games to Switch 2 without too much trouble. Thanks to machines like the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally, the Switch 2 is going to have much steeper competition than its predecessor when it comes to handheld gaming, and while Nintendo is always going to position their first-party titles as the main selling point of their consoles, with game development getting longer and more expensive, Nintendo is going to have to rely more and more on third-party developers to fill in the gaps in their release schedule. And Nintendo did a little bit during the Switch era, and they were able to get a lot of third-party developers on their side, but the underpowered nature of the handheld meant that it wasn't able to get everything. Stuff like Elden Ring or Metal Gear Solid Delta or the Silent Hill 2 remake, there was no chance of it coming to the Switch, but now we might actually see some of those games make their way to Switch 2, and with any luck, we'll eventually start to see third-party publishers think about putting their games on Switch 2 day and date with the PS5 and Series X versions. Is it super likely? Maybe not, but I hope that it is something that is at least considered. As for first-party titles, I really want to see what the new 3D Mario is going to look like. I am a sucker for 3D platformers. Mario Odyssey dropped in 2017. We've been waiting almost a decade for a new 3D Mario outside of Bowser's Fury, which came with the 3D World port and was ultimately a much smaller experience rather than a full 3D Mario game. It was more of a testbed for ideas rather than something made to really scratch that itch for a brand new 3D Mario. And while we're at it, I'd also like to see a new Captain Toad get made too. The first one was surprisingly fun for a little puzzle game, and the diorama puzzle box style of level design is something that could easily lend it to more and more games with new themes and level designs. There's so much you could explore with the Captain Toad gameplay style that I hope it doesn't end up just being a one and done. And of course, you know I have to say it, it's been 11 years, we just got the remaster of Returns, but where is the new Donkey Kong? He's got that brand new design in the Mario Kart trailer, he has the theme park coming up, people love him because of the movie. Come on man, it's time. A new Donkey Kong, especially a new 3D Donkey Kong, would be so exciting for the Switch 2, since that's one of the biggest things that the Switch missed out on, unfortunately, only ever getting DLC and ports of other games. Am I expecting it first year? Probably not, but that could easily be a good second or third year title. Come on Nintendo, all the stars have aligned, it's time. Let's bring this monkey back into the spotlight. And then lastly, what I'd really like to see is a new 2D Metroid. I absolutely loved Metroid Dread, and I'm a sucker for any kind of 2D Metroidvania. Mercury Steam is still available to make another one. Considering how great of a job they did with Metroid Dread, it would be a huge missed opportunity if they didn't get to do one on new hardware. Metroid Prime 4 ends up selling well, and it seems like it will with all the hype around it. I really hope it ushers in a little renaissance of the Metroid series, and we start getting games at a much more frequent pace than we have been in the last few decades. And there you have it, my initial thoughts on the Switch 2. Anything crazy? Not really, but this excitement that's going through me right now is probably going to carry on for the next few months, even if I am going to be a little antsy waiting for that Direct in April. Honestly, this looks like this could be a great year for Nintendo if they manage to get this right, and if they don't, well, I'll certainly have something to talk about on this channel, won't I? Either way, see you later, crank up the noise, and please don't fuck this up, Nintendo. Well, that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed, and if you wouldn't mind...